Coming up on Ask the Tech Guys, Leo Laporte is out, but don't worry, I, Mikah Sargent, am at the helm, and we've got a great show for you. First, Pyle joins us to talk about Starship Test Flight 2. How did it go? What have we learned? And what's to come? Then we are joined, of course, by Chris Marquardt for our photo assignment. The next one, it's time to get unusual. We also answer some great questions, including using an older iPhone for iMessage while running a main Android device. And, hey, should I have my own modem and router if I want to have the most control over my home network? All that and more coming up on Ask the Tech Guys.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Ask the Tech Guys with Mikah Sargent, episode 2001, recorded Sunday, November 19th, 2023. The definition of Dapper. This episode of Ask the Tech Guys is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. Keep your IT team's skills up with the speed of technology. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. Twit listeners can receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution plan after completing their form. Based on your team's size, you'll receive a properly quoted discount tailored to your needs. And by Traceroute, the podcast for digital pioneers. Traceroute offers a fascinating glimpse into the inner workings of our digital world. Get keyed into the conversation now. Listen and subscribe to the new season of Traceroute on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Traceroute now.
Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club Twit. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows. Plus, membership in the Club Twit Discord, a great clubhouse for Twit listeners. And finally, the Twit Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks for your support.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Tech Guys, minus the S this week. Leo is, I think, racing around Las Vegas, Nevada, and is currently unavailable to join me this week on Ask the Tech Guys. But don't worry, I am here. I am one of those two tech guys, and I am so excited to answer your questions. This, of course, is the show where we, and in this case, I take your questions live on air and do my best to answer them. You can get in touch with the show live by going to call.twit.tv on your mobile device or your computer. And when you do that, you will join a Zoom call where you will hang out for a little while until we're able to bring you up and have you ask your question. If you do go the way of Zoom, we ask that you use, there's a little button at the bottom that says raise hand. And if you click on that button that says, hey, I'm here to actually ask a question, because we do have some folks who like to just hang out in the Zoom, which is totally fine. You can also email us, atg@twit.tv. Leo usually works out his rotator cuff to get those emails. I've got them over here, thanks to John, ready to roll. So lots of emails there. And you can send, if you want to, audio and video there as well. It's a great way to get in touch with us. Or you can call us at 888-724-2884. When you call that number during the show, you will also be brought into the Zoom. It's not going to look like Zoom for you because it's just audio, where you'll hang out. And when we bring you on the air, you'll need to hit *6 in order to unmute yourself and be able to get your question asked and hopefully answered. If you do call that number during the week, 888-724-2884, you can leave a voicemail, and then we're able to pull that up and play it and answer it live on the show. So those are all the ways to get in touch, and I am very excited to kick off this episode, of course, with some news. I was shook when I actually opened up our Slack here at work, and someone had posted in the news section of our Slack to say, it was actually John Slanina who did, to share a blog post from OpenAI that said, hey, this was on Friday, by the way. Hey, we are going to be kicking out Sam Altman as the CEO of OpenAI, and instead we will temporarily bring Chief Technology Officer Mira Murati to the CEO position while we continue to look for a successor. Now, Sam Altman is kind of, at least in my mind, synonymous with OpenAI, right? The OpenAI is the company that makes ChatGPT, DALL-E, and some other generative AI systems. And Sam Altman was the one who took the stage to talk about the new additions to OpenAI at its recent event where it talked to developers, and is, as far as I'm concerned, kind of has been the face of the company. And I think for Sam Altman himself, the face of the company. So it was shocking to learn that OpenAI had made this choice. Now, what ended up kind of coming out is that while Sam Altman was the CEO of the company, he reportedly was talking to different investors to be able to get investments for some potential other companies. And what was happening, allegedly, reportedly, is that Altman was working on a venture wherein a company would be created to make GPUs, quite literally the chips that are kind of behind the processing of AI systems, these generative AI systems, to compete with NVIDIA. And what the board said was the reason that Sam Altman was fired from the position or jettisoned from the position was because there was a breakdown in communication between the board and the CEO. Now, what is particularly wild, I feel, is that since that happened, it turns out that the company is working to get Sam Altman to return as CEO. So after getting fired on Friday, which again, reports suggest that not only was he fired on Friday, but the companies that have a vested interest in OpenAI, like Microsoft, which has a huge investment in OpenAI, didn't learn about this firing until the last minute. That called into question that partnership. There was, worry that this is going to lead to a tumultuous situation where if Sam Altman is not at the head, what's going to happen to this company? Will it be the same? It just got more messy from there, if you can believe it, because on top of them letting him go, not really telling people about what was going on until the last minute, then the people, the researchers who work at the company, the engineers who work at the company, the folks that are pro Sam Altman, so to speak, reportedly said, look, if you don't fix this, if you don't get Sam Altman back, we're going to resign from the company. And so The Verge has reported, along with The Information, which is another publication, that Sam Altman was in talks with the board to come to a decision of what would happen. And what would happen is that the entire board would resign, Sam Altman would be reinstated as CEO, and that things would then progress from there, with Altman kind of getting more of a say in how the board would be structured and what rules the board would have. Because OpenAI is kind of a unique company in the sense that when the company was founded, it was founded as a not-for-profit organization that was aimed at making sure that artificial intelligence, and especially artificial general intelligence, would not be at odds with humanity, right? And so as time progressed and OpenAI made these huge breakthroughs in its GPT systems, we had the situation where the company is going, oh, we're kind of needing to look at how this could be a profitable thing and to keep it growing, to keep it going, to keep it moving. And so the board exists, unlike a typical company where the board exists to make sure that the shareholders are getting the most value from the company. This board exists with the sole purpose of making sure that the company is still abiding by the kind of general rules that were set up for OpenAI in the first place, to be the kind of creator of AI that is conscious of how it has an impact on humanity. And so it's not necessarily in its current form, set out to make sure that the company profits and that thereby shareholders profit. So in that case, it does make a little more sense that the company might make a decision like this to let go of someone who maybe is more focused on profit and creation for the sake of where they want OpenAI to go in the first place. But when push comes to shove and you've got something as big as Microsoft kind of having a key role here, then, and also I think just the general excitement around Sam Altman and the fact that so many of the people who work at the company are also excited about Sam Altman and appreciate the work that he's done and want to continue to work with him, then you're faced with this kind of horrible situation where, maybe it was the right choice for what the board set out to do, but it's not necessarily the right choice for what the company needs going forward. And that's kind of where we are right now. According to, again, The Verge, late last night, so technically early this morning as we record this show on Sunday, November 19th, they kind of turned in for the night or the morning to what was the last update, which is that there was a 5 p.m. deadline that many of the engineers and researchers had set for the company or for the board to say, look, we're leaving and we're bringing Sam Altman back. That deadline went ahead and passed without any clear indication about what was going on. But as far as we know, Sam Altman is still in talks with the board. So we're waiting to see what happens there and how this is all going to play out, because we also heard that Sam Altman and some other folks from OpenAI were already in talks with investors about sort of a pivot and to figure out what was going to be next to start up another company. So I'm personally a little bit concerned about this, because I have, as time has gone on, and Leo and I have both talked about it on this show, we've seen more value and more utility out of ChatGPT, but also the tools behind ChatGPT that are being used across the whole ecosystem of technology products, right? And as that value and utility has increased, we're left with this kind of concern that, okay, does this mean that even if Sam Altman returns, this is a scar nonetheless? This has happened. There's been this situation that has taken place, right? And so you wonder, how does a company recover from this? And if it's something that everybody will just kind of glance over or not, it remains to be seen, but we're kind of keeping an eye on that. Another thing that really shocked me, I remember coming in on Thursday for Tech News Weekly and finding out that Apple had made an announcement that the company is going to support RCS. For those of you who don't know, RCS stands for Rich Communication Services, and it is a messaging standard. Okay, so for many, many years, we've had SMS and MMS, and then there have been third-party systems that have used basically just internet, the data, to transfer messages back and forth. So WhatsApp and WeChat and iMessage and some of Google's many, many messaging apps that they've had and killed over time. But SMS and MMS were these standards that existed that gave you the ability to send with SMS, a text-based message from one phone to another over the cellular service, and MMS, which would let you send media. Well, for the longest time, we've had the green bubbles and the blue bubbles on iPhone. If you don't use iPhone, and you haven't heard of this, you're probably living underground or something. But essentially, the way that it works on an iPhone is if I message someone who has an iPhone and has turned on iMessage, then when I send a message to that person, my text appears in blue. It's a blue background, and the text is itself written in white. When that person responds to me, their background is gray and their text is black. And what that does is it lets me know that I'm communicating with a person who has iMessage, has it turned on, and that is Apple's indicator that I am using this secure messaging platform, this end-to-end encrypted platform that lets me send messages and know that it's secure. When I send a message to someone like my pal, my co-host Jason Howell, who has an Android device, when my text message goes to Jason, it appears with a white or with a green background and white text. That's the green bubble. Now, I have always had a problem with this whole green bubble, blue bubble thing because we always call the other person, I would call Jason Howell the green bubble, but technically iOS is displaying my messages in green, not his. The other person's messages are always displayed with a gray background and black text. That's beside the point. The point is that what that tells me is I am using SMS or MMS to send this message, so it doesn't have the security of iMessage. With the support of RCS from Apple, which the company says it will support in an upcoming software update, quote, later next year, that's going to introduce some new features, including the ability to send media in a way that's more kind of all encapsulated, and also to, in theory, help keep group chats from breaking. If you are an iOS user and you have ever tried to send messages to a bunch of people who have iPhones and even just one person who has an Android phone, you have the issue of it not working as a group chat in the same way. And that has led to, particularly in younger people, this sort of separation, right, of folks who are Android users and who break the group chat, and iPhone users who are able to communicate with one another without any issues. What it boils down to for me is that I don't care if you're an Android user or an iPhone user. I just want to be able to have a way to message whoever I'm talking to and know that the message is going to show up, and it's going to show up how I expect it to. Because anytime I message Jason, I'm concerned, do I need to break up this text into 140 characters for each text that I send? I have a habit of sending essays to people. When I send this photo, is it going to show up as just this tiny little thumbnail and it's not going to look how I expect it to? If I send a GIF, is that actually going to be delivered? What's going to happen on the other end? I don't know. But if I'm communicating with someone who's on iMessage, then I know how it's going to work. And so as an iPhone user, I want this RCS implementation to happen. Now, of note, RCS, by its default, it's the standard that's published by the GSM Association, the RCS Universal Profile, does not have encryption as part of the standard. It does not have end-to-end encryption as part of the standard. What has happened is that Google, and through Android, has augmented the RCS Universal Profile to add that encryption. So just be aware that as it stands, we don't know exactly how it's going to work in practice in terms of if we will see end-to-end encryption or if Apple will simply support at its base just the RCS Universal Profile as it's published by the GSM Association. That remains to be seen. So that's something I'm, very much paying attention to. One thing that I have read since then is that the company reportedly will continue to show these messages in green, but whenever you message a person over RCS, it will appear as a green bubble, that they're not going to add like a third color. Will that change? Don't know. But as it stands, blue and green will still stay. But what I think is the most exciting part of this is no more broken group chats. So we can finally communicate with who we want to and not worry that those messages aren't getting delivered. All right. You are watching Ask the Tech Guys, technically Ask the Tech Guy this week. Again, you can get in touch with us. 888-724-2884 is the phone number. Call.twit.tv is the URL. atg@twit.tv is the email. And I'm looking forward to answering your questions next on Ask the Tech Guys. All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about our first sponsor this week. It is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. ACI Learning covers all your audit, cybersecurity, and information technology training needs. You already know the name IT Pro TV from our network. We've talked about them for years and years. Now, as a part of ACI Learning, IT Pro has expanded its capabilities, providing more support for IT teams. ACI keeps all its courses current, including MS Cloud, AWS, CompTIA, and more. IT teams significantly benefit from IT Pro. ACI Learning kept all the fun and the personality of IT Pro TV and amplified their robust solutions for all your training needs. So if you were worried that the personality was going to be drained from it in this partnership with ACI, don't worry about that. ACI has maintained all of that fun and that entertainment. You can let your team be entertained while they train with short format content and over 7,200 hours to choose from. And the audience asked, and ACI delivered. Just in time to wrap up your annual CPE, ACI is re-releasing its entire audit catalog in shorter, easier to digest versions. That means your CPE exams for each course will now be faster too. So you can check out their new audit courses and lab releases this month, including Certified Information Systems Auditor and CompTIA Security Plus. Get the full scoop on how ACI can help you navigate the audit world by visiting acilearning.com/blog. And don't miss out on these upcoming audit webinars available to watch live or on demand. All Things Cybersecurity with Bo Bullock on November 30th is, that's just right around the corner. So be sure to check that out. IT Pro TV, which is now ACI Learning, keeps your business from risking redundancy via the most up-to-date certifications and courses available. It provides you with a personal account manager to make sure you aren't wasting anyone's time. Your account manager will work with you to ensure your team only focuses on the skills that matter to your organization so that you can leave unnecessary training behind, and holds ISO certification so you know you are receiving the world-class training your team deserves. Keep your IT team up with the speed of technology. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. Twit listeners receive a free trial and up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. The discount is based on the size of your team when you fill out the form. That's go.acilearning.com/twit. And we thank ACI Learning and IT Pro for sponsoring this week's episode of Ask the Tech Guys. All right, we are back from the break. John, let's go to the phones.
All right. I know Adam's been hanging out since we started the call, so we should probably pick up on Adam.
All right, let's go to Adam. We'll wait for Adam to hop into the room and bring Adam up on the Stargate. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Adam, I know you're there. You just joined.
Yeah, I can see
hear you guys.
Oh, I can hear you.
Awesome.
Y'all are my favorite tech guys.
Oh, that's so kind. Hello and welcome to the show. Adam, where are you calling from?
We're calling from the Corpus Christi, Texas area.
Okay, you have an awesome setup. I like this. What's this on the wall with the letters?
That is the phonetic alphabet.
Oh, see, I need that because when I place tech support calls, yes, even the tech guys have to place tech support calls. I always make up what the letters are.
I actually, my computer is right here. I own a tech company. I turn around and do the same thing.
Oh, nice.
I don't use the Morse code portion.
Oh, nice. It's got Morse code too. You know, I've always thought about learning that. I could send John secret messages with my eyes while I'm recording the show.
Pick that up in IKEA.
Oh, okay. Well, I might have to check out. So welcome to the show. How may I help you this week? Oh, thank you. It's happy to have you on the show.
First time caller, and I can't believe Leo's not here. I've been listening to Leo and you for quite a while now. Love both you guys. Been listening to him since the Tech Guys. The Tech TV many years.
Wow, yeah, that's been several years ago. He's currently on the racetracks, but sends his regards as always.
But I knew that he loves printer questions.
Oh, those are his favorite.
And I know you guys love printer questions, so I'm going to ask a different one today.
Okay,
That's fine.
That's fine. You know, I'm sad it's not a printer question, but we could take a different one.
No, it's going to be a printer question.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So my question is, since I've been in tech for many years and heard you guys talk about printers, and we don't like printers that much at all either when it comes to the connectivity of it all, has there been any talk about anything such as, is there going to be a new standard in the future?
A new standard so here's the thing about printers and standards that is wild. I don't know if you've ever taken the time to hop into your printer's sort of built-in web server. But you can typically type in the IP address for the printer and up will pop the settings. And there's always a page that has the printer's protocols. And that page is chock full of protocol after protocol after protocol, because this has happened time and time again, that someone comes along and says, look, you know, we have been buying printers for years and we're trying to get them to work with our specific network. And what if someone just made a protocol that answered all of our problems? And then they make a protocol that answers all of their problems, but it just joins the list. Well, good to see you. It just joins the list of all of the other protocols that are there as well. And here's the thing. We also saw the sort of loss of an important protocol. And I can't remember now what it was called. It's one from Google. I'll have to be paying attention to the chat. But when that went away, Google Cloud Print, I think was the name of it. And it was... what is it? Mopria, that as well. But these were, again, supposed to be a universal protocol that no matter what system you were using, no matter where, that you would be able to print and even do it while you weren't locally near that device, right? I will say that as an iOS and Mac OS and iPad OS user, AirPrint is the closest thing I've come to something that just works. It's kind of Apple's Google Cloud Print in that way. And almost all of the modern systems make use of that. But, you may be onto something, right? Because if we think about the smart home, now we've finally seen what is supposed to be the true be-all, end-all solution by way of Matter, and underneath it, one protocol called Thread. And it's finally all of the companies playing ball. I would say that the reason why we haven't seen that with printers is because it all boils down to the fact that there are hundreds upon hundreds of dental offices out there and all of these companies that have been using, some printer for years and it works just fine and their protocol works just fine. And if a new protocol comes along, then it's going to result in a lot of support calls. And so you just end up adding and adding and adding instead of ever sort of, going into one specific option. So I don't think we will see that in the printer space, because printers have just existed for too long versus something like the smart home. Yeah,
it's really too bad, because it's not a problem for us. We can make them work, but it does take time when they have issues. And it just was a thought. I thought I'd bring that out there. If somebody ever wanted to think about it, it's never a bad time, but you may be right, maybe too late. It's too
they're too long in the tooth.
So long.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know about you. I hear there's this weird push, I think, especially in the tech space, of people kind of why do you even need a printer? I don't exist in that space. I do still need a printer, and I have a use for a printer, and I don't think it's odd to have a printer. But I've noticed, because Leo has said it before too, like, why do you even need a printer? And I've heard that from other people as well. So yeah, I think printers have a while to go. When that technology was first created in its modern form, it was kind of absolutely life-changing that someone could in their home take something that they made and see it, in person, to have that. It was the closest thing we got to like replicator technology at the time, right? And it was just this amazing thing that I could create something on my computer and then have it physically in my hand. And I think that's part. There's still a wonder, I think, with printers, even though they have so many issues and they cause problems. Yes. It almost speaks to that, right? That despite the frustrations, we still keep using them because there is something cool about being able to to take a photo, make some adjustments to it, and then suddenly have it hanging on the wall, or to create a card for your mom for Mother's Day, or send your sibling who's away at college a letter, whatever it happens to be. It's really cool that we're able to do that. And I think that plays a role in why we keep them around, even though they keep adding more protocols.
Well, I hope that was a discussion that, I brought up that somebody may think about in the future, or like you said, I feel the same way. Having a printer for me is, I don't even carry a pen anymore, so I don't even really use paper. Put everything on my phone, and other people have to use printing. My wife's business uses printing. I don't. And it's kind of like fax machines. They're pretty much almost gone.
Right.
We'll see what happens with printers in the future, I guess.
Fax machines. Yeah, that's a really
now I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Let me forget about those. It's a really thought-provoking question, though. I thank you. Do you have a podcast or something? I see you've got lots of set up there.
Actually, yes, I do.
What is it?
Recently, it's 5 Acre Tech.
5 Acre
is the name of the podcast at 5acretech.com. I have a partner. His name's Ronnie Tofty. He's not here today, and we kind of record during the week and release on Monday. And kind of like, matter of fact, when he said we ought to do something like this, I was going to do a YouTube channel many years ago. I think about right before COVID.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had kind of got sick, got an infection, lost part of my thumb.
Oh, no.
And it all just kind of went away. And then we kind of thought this up, and it's been fun ever since. Matter of fact, I introduced you guys to him that day.
Oh, nice.
Listen to you guys on the way to Houston. So it's been fun. And I was like, you know what? I never have called into this show all these years. And I'm like, I've got to do this.
Yeah, well, you should definitely.
Leo's been great. You have been great. I love it.
Thank you.
We love
Thank you so much.
We listen all the time.
Yeah, you should give us another call if you come up with another question when Leo's around.
I will.
Yeah,
I will.
I'd love to hear more from you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day. All righty.
You too.
Yeah, that's 5acretech.com if you want to check out the podcast. There's a great image at the top of the page of them sitting on some sort of contraption podcasting. It's pretty funny. It's like farm equipment or something. All right, John, where should we go next?
Let's take an actual phone call. I've been hanging out a little bit.
Yeah, someone called in 888-724-2884. Once you join the call, remember to hit *6 to unmute, and we'll be ready to take your question.
And Matt, ICU will be picking up on you next. Just letting you know.
Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi there. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello. My name's Wes. I'm calling from the DFW area.
Hello, Wes. Welcome.
Hello. I just had a quick question for you. See if I could pick your brains a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's regarding monitors.
Okay.
So I'm looking to buy my wife a monitor. She's going to be working from home and starting grad school in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, she works from a laptop. And I'm concerned that that's not the most efficient or ergonomic way to do long hours and having to multitask between programs. So when it comes to monitors, from my experience, it seems like they last forever. So you never have to replace them really. And I have no issue splurging on one. That's essentially a one-time purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to get her something she's going to be comfortable with. And I like the studio display for a lot of reasons, like the power bricks built in, takes a lot of the clutter out, and she can connect her laptop to the display. And the design seems to be easy to adjust because she's constantly standing up, so not be sitting for so long.
Yeah.
So she adjusts the height a lot constantly. And also it's got the built-in speakers and a webcam.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
it seems pretty rigid. It seems like a pretty rigid design. It doesn't wobble or creak. But from the reviews I've seen, they all seem to mention you can do better for less money. And it seems like there's usually compromises involved, as it's not always just the screen size and the price.
Yeah.
And I want your opinion to see if there's good alternatives. And also, does a curved monitor make a difference?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, these are.
I'm paying the $2,000. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say these are really good questions, right? If you're going to spend that much money, you want to make sure that you're getting the best, and that the compromises that you're not making any compromises if you don't have to. I think you've asked some really good questions. I will say first and foremost, when it comes to the reviews that have been of that monitor, they are. It's heavily skewed toward, when you're spending that much money, you are tending to go towards displays that are for gaming and are for sort of video performance stuff. And because of that, the studio display doesn't match the level that you can get from another device. But I'll go into that a little bit more. I want to start by confirming that the laptop that your wife is using is an Apple laptop.
So currently she has an M1 MacBook Pro,
Okay.
and for her job, she's required to have a bunch of programs running at once with multiple windows while she's on camera. She's also going to be reading a lot of research papers online, and she tends to do image editing on her laptop and iPad when she designs products for her Etsy store. So the color accuracy needs to be important too.
Okay. So what I'll say is this. I have the studio display. When I first got it, there were lots of complaints about it in terms of, again, for that price, people expected more out of it. What I will say is that if you're looking for something that has the best integration, cooperation, collaboration with an Apple device, very obviously an Apple-made device is going to be the best. And in terms of that, it really does just work. You know, I plug in the cable from the monitor to my computer, and instantly it recognizes it. I can, adjust the webcam how I want to. I can change color profiles very easily on it. It has all of the built-in technologies for adjusting the display based on the time of day. You were just talking about how if she's, reading research papers throughout the day, as the day goes on, you want to give your eyes a little bit of a rest. And so taking out some of that blue light is important. The reason why I have always liked Apple displays is for what you mentioned, having the speakers built in. Before I had the studio display, I had I think they called it the Thunderbolt display at the time. And for the same reason, I could plug in my MacBook Pro and it would power the MacBook Pro, and I would have all of that stuff that I could do on the display itself, play music from it, et cetera, et cetera. The webcam is okay. It is by no means, if your wife suddenly wants to do a podcast or something, or wants to record video professionally, it's not that level of webcam. But if you've got an iPhone, of course, you can integrate with the iPhone and use that as the webcam. I do tend toward suggesting this simply because of the fact that it's all baked in. It is calibrated perfectly. Using the buttons on the MacBook Pro to adjust display brightness will work with the display itself. And I have had after it had some initial issues. There were some firmware updates that fixed it. After those initial updates, it is rock solid, steady, and is now one of my favorite displays that I own. But if you want to step outside of what Apple offers, honestly, to this day, one of the places that I go as a tech guy is the New York Times Wirecutter. They have reviews that are constantly being updated. And what's great is that they give you options based on what you might want. So if you want a bigger screen, but you don't want to pay a lot of money, there are Asus ProArt displays that are 27-inch displays, and Asus makes a bunch of them. The problem is that when you pull out of the scope of using an Apple display, then you have to start considering, I guess you said it's a MacBook Pro, right? So you can do HDMI. So that's quite good. Because then any of these displays are going to, work rock solid over HDMI. I have had, let's see, I think this was probably back in 2014 or 2015, I bought 2 Dell Ultra Sharp monitors. They were just small ones because I wanted 2 kind of smaller displays that I could use. And to this day, as you pointed out, they still work. They work great. Dell's Ultra Sharp line is fantastic. We use them here at the studio. And I'm getting a thumbs up from John Ashley. Our editors have them. I have one. We all have these ultra sharp monitors, so you can never go wrong in that range. As far as a curved display, there are going to be gamers who get mad at me when I say this, but I think that is silly nonsense and that it doesn't make a difference. If you want to feel like you're wrapped in your content, right? That you can see to the left of you somebody coming at you whenever you're gaming, or to the right of you, sure, I can understand how a curved monitor might be of assistance. But in terms of just doing work and reading, don't spend the money on getting a curved display when you could put that money into getting something that has a higher DPI, that has a much better calibration for color, and will, work against eye strain. So I would say in general, avoiding curved displays, not a bad idea. If you want to go all in with Apple, I know you'll be happy with the Studio display. If you're looking outside of the Apple Studio display, my suggestion is to go for a Dell Ultra Sharp monitor.
No, I've heard that since the Apple display has a 5K resolution, there are concerns with going to a 4K display and that there's scaling issues. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So
when you connect to it.
Yeah. So this is long been an issue with the way that Apple, because Apple, when they are working on their display technology, they are kind of more concerned with how do I put this? They're more concerned with how things look in the end and how it works for their user than they're necessarily concerned about the math and the specs. And so when you go into the display properties for your monitor, you are presented with some basic options for the resolution. And there's a default resolution of 1470 by 956 for this MacBook Air that I'm using, for example. But if you, there's a button that says show all resolutions, and that can go all the way up to 2560 by 1664 pixels for the resolution. That's, the basically the extent of what the display is able to do. They drop that down to 1470 by 956 because that gives you this very sharp, very clear, very clean, crisp edge. What you don't have to worry about is that. I don't know how else to put it. It is something that is taken care of automatically. The only time that this is an issue is if you're using a low pixel density display and a high pixel density display next to each other. So if your wife decided to, for example, plug in the studio display and then next to it had the one that I just mentioned earlier, the 24-inch ultra sharp monitor that I talked about that is from years ago, when the browser detects that it's on that lower density, it will display stuff so that it looks good on that monitor. And if I drag it over to the studio display, sometimes the browser doesn't realize that it's gone to the higher density display. And so I just have to refresh the page and then the content works. But if you're only using the studio display, that scaling issue doesn't happen. It takes care of that all automatically as long as you're using the defaults for both of those. And I recommend using the defaults for both of those. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so she's designing things on her iPad and then for her store and then putting them on a non-Apple display, she might notice a little bit of inconsistency there.
Not between the iPad and the display, no. Because, what level of iPad, what iPad model is it?
She has an iPad Pro.
Yeah, then no.
20. Okay.
Yeah, so the iPad Pro is high density. The studio display is high density. So it's less about the 4K or 5K resolution and more about the PPI. And those are all above a certain level that the screen doesn't need to readjust the interface on the PPI to be able to work between those. And Apple does, again, that's the beauty of, again, working within the ecosystem, is that the iPad and your device itself, the MacBook Pro in this case, and the monitor are all Apple devices. They're all communicating using Apple technology. And so it's a very clean, very clear movement between them. Now, if it was, working on like an external Wacom display and then bringing that over to the studio display, that could be where you would see, a shift in resolution and need to do something to adjust. But because it's coming from an iPad, I've actually done this before, worked on something on my iPad Pro, brought it over into the studio display. It looks just fine. I've edited photos on my MacBook Air and then plug in the studio display, bring them onto there, looks just fine. And with the built-in color profiles, that also, I think, adds to the experience where that you're getting a locked-in view across them. So yeah, I honestly, I know it's an expensive purchase, but yeah, that Thunderbolt display, I ended up giving it to a friend, and I wouldn't be surprised if I called up that friend and said, "Is that still working?" It probably is still working to this day. Monitors they can last a really long time, and it's a very sturdy, hefty piece of tech that so far I have been very pleased with. Again, after those first initial firmware updates that needed to take place. Yeah, this is a really good question. Because typically we get people calling like, how can I connect 7 different displays to my computer? But you're just talking simply about, look, I just want a display that I know is going to work. Does it need to be this? Does it need to be that? By the way, I just want to give you a little bit more info. In our chat room, everybody there is talking about how they use Dell Ultra Sharp monitors. So if you decide to not go the way of Apple, I'm not alone in suggesting that Dell Ultra Sharp is the place to look.
Are they using the same type of display pen?
I actually don't know where Dell sources their Ultra Sharp monitors. That's a good question. I know that they have some of the best factory color calibration, and some of the when we look at the pixel density that is advertised versus what the display provides, Dell is always the closest to that range. And so yeah, overall they've got very good quality control, and I would say steadfast in terms of their lasting power. They do seem to last quite a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's a great one, and let us know how what you end up going with and how things turn out. And if you have any more questions about it, especially about the studio display, happy to answer those in the future.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Should we take another break, John? All right. I love it. We've got the break sign. Let's take another break to tell you about our next sponsor of today's episode of Ask the Tech Guys. It's Traceroute. Have you heard of this podcast? You've got to check out this podcast. If you've been listening, then you've heard us tell you about the newest season of Traceroute. If you haven't been listening, where have you been? I don't know, maybe listening to Traceroute. That's great. They just kicked it off by exploring a fan favorite topic, the ongoing and challenging relationship between humanity and artificial intelligence. Is AI our friend or our worst enemy? We talk a lot about AI on this show, and it is a question that we have, right? Is this stuff helping us? Is this not helping us? Is it hurting us? Is it something that is going to augment humanity or that is going to take over humanity? You don't want to miss season 3 of Traceroute because this is what they're talking about. It's available on all of your favorite podcast listening platforms. Traceroute is a podcast about the people who shape our digital world. Every story peels back the layers of the stack to dig in and reveal the humanity in the hardware. And I think that's especially important when it comes to AI. Season 3 will explore topics that can potentially shape our society in profound ways, such as how researchers are using machine learning and robotics to debug an invasive species to offer unique solutions to ecological crises, and digital migration for the preservation of history, culture, and land. So get keyed into the conversation now. Listen and subscribe to the new season of Traceroute on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out Traceroute now. And we thank Traceroute for sponsoring this week's episode of Ask the Tech Guys. All right, folks, we are back from the break, and I believe we promised someone that they were next on the call.
Yeah, no, it's Matthew. I'm going to call upon Matthew next.
All right, Matthew will be joining us next on Ask the Tech Guys. If you've got questions, you can head to call.twit.tv, call us at 888-724-2884, or email us atg@twit.tv. All right, in theory, we've got Matthew in the Zoom room. Welcome to the show, and where are you calling from?
Hi, Micah. I'm calling from beautiful Valley Glen, California.
Nice. Happy to have you on the show. How can I be of service?
Congrats on flying solo. I like Leo, but I'm glad to see you doing this show too now.
Thank you.
Last week, there was quite a bit of talk about the usual topic of green bubbles versus blue bubbles, which affects our family because my stepson is the only one around who has an Android phone. The rest of us have iPhones, and his friends all have iPhones.
Oh, wow. I need to know. This is a person who knows what they like, it sounds like.
Yes, he does. Oh, his father was an open source programmer, and he wants to follow in his footsteps.
Okay, that's fair.
Last week, it was mentioned that there was a possible solution that turned out to be not such a good one, involving server farms of Mac Minis. I mentioned that. I mentioned that to Ben. He doesn't like the idea either.
Oh, good.
But he came up with an odd alternate solution. I'd like to run past you and see if it's at all viable.
I am interested.
Rather than get the messages on his Android phone, which is what he prefers, he was saying that he might get a cheap, old iPhone and use that without a phone plan, just Wi-Fi, maybe even using his Android phone as a hotspot, use an ancient iPhone that still works, and that would be what he would use for messaging. So I'd like to know, what are the drawbacks? Is this workable? What do you think?
Wow. Okay. I think this is really interesting. That was actually kind of one of the initial ideas that a company that was also trying to do this whole messaging thing had was that if you had a device at home that was an older iPhone, you just needed to log in with your iMessage, with your iCloud account to have iMessage, and then be able to set it up that way. As kind of, it just existed as this place that could be the source of truth for the messages that would then let the service be able to kind of send and receive. Now, there are a couple of things to consider here. While this would work in the sense of giving a way to connect to the iMessage network, there is a problem where you have to register your phone number with iMessage in order for your phone number to be recognized as an iMessage address. Okay. And when you do that, it messes up having your phone number exist as a kind of as a non-iMessage number. And so if your stepson were to have a friend at some point who does have Android and is using Google services or some other type of messaging platform, when it tries to contact that number, if that number is registered with iMessage, it may have issues getting through. That is the one issue. What your stepson could do is only register the iMessage with an email. Typically, it's going to be your iCloud account. So, androidlover@icloud.com. And then your stepson will need to give that email address to all of you to say, hey, this is how you contact me through iMessage. That can be a little bit confusing for some people. And, just again, there's like stigma involved, right? Because it's like, why am I having to text you at your email? This is weird. But what that would do is keep the phone number pure, so to speak, and untied from iMessage. If your stepson's okay with the phone number being linked to iMessage, then you can go through with that. And then later on, if that were to change, Apple does have an online support page where you can type in your phone number and say, deregister me this number from iMessage. It'll send a text to your phone and then you respond or type it in. I can't remember exactly what the process is at this point, but that would help kind of undo that. But in terms of giving the ability to get messages through iMessage, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to carry two devices with you. It's a little bit clunky, right? And, you could end up missing messages. If that phone ever reaches its end of life, then you're going to have to get a newer, ancient phone. So there are, those issues that go along with it. But I think that that's not a bad solution, particularly in terms of the security implications, right? Your stepson's very wise in recognizing that passing along an iCloud account and password, even if the company swears up and down that it's not going to do anything, it's risky. And that's why I've never used any of those services. The closest I've come is using a service where you get the service on your Mac, and it uses the accessibility features of the Mac to essentially screen read a message that comes through on iMessage and then send it in its own service. So it's super clunky, it's silly, and it's the best way of doing it without having to hand over your username and password. Yeah, I agree that it's kind of that idea of now some Mac Mini somewhere has my username and password for the account that I use the most as an iOS user. I think this is a much better solution in terms of security. But again, a little bit clunky. And if the phone number wants to be completely separated from iMessage, then yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind. You can just use the email address. But I think it's a good idea on the face of it, because it gives you you can still stay with Android, but everybody doesn't have to complain about, I've got to text this Android user. But, by the time RCS rolls around, I think it'll get a little bit easier for your stepson to do that. Yeah, no, in the chat, someone has asked, could they use another app? I will tell you from experience, it is nearly impossible to convince family members to download an app and start using an app that everybody can play ball in. I get teased a little bit around the holidays where someone will be like, so what app are you going to make us all download this time? It'll be, like we want to do Secret Santa this year. And I'm like, I have an app for that. And they're like, oh, I bet you do have an app for that. But yeah, I love that question. And again, kudos to the stepson for picking up on the fact, because I got to tell you, my younger siblings, some of the things that they've told me, oh yeah, so I jailbroke my iPhone the other day and I did this, that, and the other. And I'm going, you must not watch any of my shows. No, they don't. Thank you for the great question though. Yeah.
Thank you, Mikah.
Yeah, absolutely. And hope to see you again soon. Mm-hmm. All righty. Should we want to do an email? Or?
Let's do a quick email, maybe.
Oh, yeah, because we'll be coming up shortly with the spaceman himself. All right. So we have an email. It says, call for help from Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia. Hello, Leo and Mikah. Hello, Leo. I have a bunch of LifeX lights and light strips that are on an older generation and have the issue that when electricity is out, when it returns, the lights turn on independently of the state they were in when the power went off. I have read the new models have solved this by remembering the state they were in before the power shortage, and when the power returns, they also return to the same state. If they were off, they keep staying off. If they were on, they return to be on in the same color and brightness. So I was thinking that a solution for my old models could be to set a shortcut that would notify me when a LifeX light turns on. Of course, this would mean that every time I turn a light on, it would notify me, but I can live with that, as what I want to avoid is to have all of my lights on without knowing when I am out, or even worse, while I am traveling. Is this possible, or can you see a better workaround? Thank you in advance for the help and for all the hours of fun and interesting listening you guys give us. So Fabio is basically saying that, and this has been an issue with early model devices in general. It used to be that when you would do a firmware update on your Philips Hue bulbs, when they restarted after applying the firmware update, they would come on. And if you had them install the firmware update at 2 a.m, then lo and behold, 2 a.m. rolls around and these lights turn on at full brightness. It was not good. And so over time, Philips and many other companies that do smart lighting have added in the ability for the lights to remember the state they were in. Some of them will still flash, but then they go ahead and remember the state they were in. And that way you don't end up getting blasted. Or in the case of having the power go out and come back on, it would be frustrating to visit your home after having been gone for a couple of months, and it turns out many of the lights are on. I think that you have not a terrible solution with the shortcut. What I would suggest that you do is give it a location condition. The Home app has this feature built in where you can say, when I leave, when I arrive, or you can have it even say, when I am home, when someone is home, when no one is home, when at least X amount of people are home, and everything in between. So you would set up an automation that says, give me a notification that I've turned on this LifeX light or this LifeX light or this LifeX light. And I would recommend doing them, unfortunately, one by one, when I am away from home. And that way it will not be that annoying thing that while you're at home and you turn on the lights, that it's unfortunately giving you those notifications. So at the very least, you're only going to get that notification while you're away. It's a very simple thing to do in the Home app. Apple has support documents on creating automations for the Home app. But yes, essentially, I think you have a good idea. Just go ahead and add that extra little option that is in that setting that says, do this thing when I am home or when someone is home, or on the reverse of it, when I am not home, when no one is home. So that way you don't have to get those notifications while you're there. It'll only be while you're traveling or while you're out. But great question. Who was that again? Fabio from Santa Cruz de la Sierra, Bolivia. Thank you. All right. I believe it's time for us to be joined. I don't have any music to play, but that's okay. Joining us is Rod Pyle, Spaceman.
I bring my own sound effects this week.
Woo! I love it. I love it. Welcome back to the show. Leo is on the racetracks in Las Vegas, but I am happy to be here with you. I mean, we've got seemingly a lot to talk about. I know John Slanina was in the studio very excited about what's going on. So tell me it all, Mr. Spaceman.
Well, first of all, congrats on taking over for Leo as well as you do. And I wish that sometime in my life I could have done anything as well as you do Dapper.
Oh, thank you. That's so cool.
I mean, you're the very definition of Dapper, which is the only time I ever got described as anything like Dapper was foppish, which isn't the same. So
I think I'm going to add that to my business card. The very definition of Dapper.
There you go.
That's
add to the lower third. The very definition of Dapper.
Thank you.
So I assume John was revved up about the Starship second, hopefully orbital test, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So we've been waiting for this for a long time. And it isn't SpaceX, they develop and prep these things very quickly. He's got a whole assembly line. Elon's thing has always been, in all the other ways that he's a robber baron / industrialist of the late 19th, early 20th century, has been, build these rockets on an assembly line. So they've always got a lineup of 2 or 3 of them standing there, these Starship upper stages and the boosters. So what we were waiting for was approval from various government agencies, FAA, and oddly Fish and Wildlife Service, because they didn't want Elon once again blowing chunks of concrete in the ocean where it might bonk a shark or a tuna or something. I guess they're worried about people too, but Fish and Wildlife seemed to be the big one. So finally, Saturday, after a 1-day delay, which is nothing when you're talking about new rockets, they had their test. I think John Ashley's got a file of it if he's got it handy. There we go. And, biggest rocket in history, most powerful rocket in history by about double.
Really?
The Saturn V. Yeah. I mean, 33 engines on the lower stage. The only people that ever tried that were the Russians back in the 70s with their late 60s, early 70s with their attempt at a moon rocket. And it failed every time because it's really hard, it turns out, to synchronize 33 or 24, however many engines you've got all burning at once. And Musk, love him or hate him. I wish he had never even heard of Twitter, but he makes this work. And I won't say he makes it look easy, but compared to the aerospace companies that NASA's dealt with over the decades that have been in business since the 1930s, he does make it look easy. Probably because he doesn't have shareholders. Anyway, the first stage flew pretty flawlessly. Now, they were trying something new here, separating the upper half and the lower half. Most rockets use explosive bolts or fasteners to separate the 2 stages. In the past, Elon had used mechanical plungers. This time he decided, no, I'm going to do what's called hot staging, which is the upper stage starts firing its engines before the lower stage is completely done. That way you're still moving forward and you just toss the spent stage away and the first one, the top one's already firing. That appeared to work, although it looks like it may have done some damage to the upper stage because in a few seconds here you're going to see it do a great big kaboom. Or as they, of course, like to tongue-in-cheek say at SpaceX, rapid unscheduled disassembly, which is a pretty silly way of saying it, kaboomed. But anyway, so the first stage blew up. Second stage did continue flying, got up to about, I think it was 91 miles, which is in space. It's just not orbit. And unfortunately, they lost contact with it, so they either detonated this destruct mechanism or it self-destructed. I don't know which yet. But, this is only the second flight of this complete system. And although NASA did manage to fly the Saturn V in tests with fewer mishaps in the 1960s, they had unlimited budgets at that point, effectively.
Got it.
They were running about 5% of the federal budget. SpaceX isn't spending anything like that. And although companies like SpaceX have had the virtue of learning from what the government and the Soviet Union did back in those days, nobody else has even come close to this. Is like when I was a kid in the 1960s growing up and you see these old black and white movies about the crazy guy, the scientist inventor goes out and builds a moon rocket in his garage.
Yeah.
So it was astonishing. And like I said, there's things about Elon that drive me nuts. Like I know it does you guys because I listen to everything. But no other human being as an individual has ever come close to having this kind of influence on not just this program, but he controls over half the world's launch industry at this point, having started from scratch in 2002. So hats off, man.
Yeah, I was going to say something has to be said for that. Can I ask you, you said that this is, the power of this is doubled. Can we talk about what is the benefit of having this much more power if the one we've had before got us to the moon? Yeah. Why do we need more power?
So it's really hard to compare these systems in other than gross numbers because, yes, it's more powerful, but it's also got to come back, right? So you end up moving with all that extra power, not that much more mass than the Saturn V did. So the Saturn V, 1960s, it's NASA's moon rocket. That was a Falcon 9 we were about to see there. Got us to the moon, but it got us there by bare minimum bandwidth, right? So it was just enough to get the job done. And I've talked about the lunar module before, which is what landed 6 different crews onto the moon in the 1960s, early 70s. The astronauts were not kidding when they used to call it the aluminum balloon. It was so thin and so delicate and could not have landed in a 1G environment like Earth, and so on and so on. So the difference is 2 things. One, Starship is fully reusable, we hope, and can do this kind of regular shuttle cargo delivery service, whereas the Saturn V was a one-use, very bespoke, designed specifically for the Apollo moon program. And the second is that the Starship system, once it's in orbit, to do its duty to the moon, needs multiple refuelings by other starships coming up and pumping fuel into it, whereas the Saturn V, again, was a, hey, see you guys when you get back, go have your single journey thing. So there's a lot of other differences, but those are kind of the big ones.
Okay, that makes sense. The coming back in particular. Now, the other thing that you mentioned, the choice to have the top of it fire while everything's still connected is when it comes to this kind of thing, instead of doing the exploding bolts, is it a matter of just spaghetti projects? Is there something, has there been research done that suggests this? Are we just trying different things to see what works best? Do we know why they ended up settling on this as the way to go about it now?
My understanding is it's a couple of things. One, it's a little less complicated because you're basically pushing the old stage away as opposed to fooling around with firing various smaller rockets and so forth. Also, for the upper stage, for instance, the Saturn V, they had these things, as we're getting down the weeds here, but they had these ullage engines, they're called, little rockets on the back of the upper Saturn V stage that after the first stage separated, these things would fire just long enough to settle the fuel in the bottom of the tank so it wasn't sloshing around and cavitating. And when you separate stages the traditional way, there's a chance of that happening once they're up higher. So this helps keep that from happening. And the Russians had done it successfully for years. So, and Musk, he's a very practical guy. So in his Falcon 9 program, the smaller rockets, I haven't been out to SpaceX since they were working on the Starship. But in the Falcon 9, as you walk around the plant, you see a lot of kind of what I would call vaguely Russian techniques, which is like, okay, this isn't fitting, get out the sledgehammers. I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's very practical and just get it done. Do enough to get it done and then step away and do something else. Here we're seeing the Falcon 9 take off. Now, this weekend, besides Starship, he scheduled 2 Falcon 9 launches on opposite coasts, one at Cape Canaveral and one at Vandenberg, because apparently SpaceX can handle doing 2 routine launches and 1 completely massive experimental launch of a monster rocket at the same time.
Wow.
Again, hats off to this level of organization. The booster we're seeing here, this is an older flight, but it basically looks the same as what's taking off at Vandenberg tomorrow morning. These are Starlink launches, so they're deploying more and more flotsam out there in orbit for our internet proclivities. And I think that the booster that launched Saturday morning early had flown 15 times, I think, and this one that's going off tomorrow morning may have been 11. again, nobody has ever flown a used rocket before. At least not like this. There were experiments with McDonnell Douglas and so forth, but nobody's flown rockets over and over again. And he's reaching up to 15, 16, 17 times at some of these boosters. So
that's pretty impressive.
I think the guy's kind of a stinker, but I just can't contain my admiration for his ability, if not to do it. I mean, he has a lot of great people working for him.
Right.
But he's figured out a way to inspire, belittle, cajole, bully. I don't know what the proper adjective is or verb is, but he's figured out a way. Did you read the Isaacson book, by the way?
I did not know.
On him? Okay, I know Leo did. It's an interesting read. Isaacson's been beaten up for not digging hard enough, but there's a lot of character insults and assassination in there nonetheless. And it doesn't paint a very pretty picture of the guy except for his abilities, whatever they are.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. At the end of the day, you do have to look at what he's able to pull off. And I guess I was curious about that as well. What does it take? And maybe this is too long a question, but well, not nearly as long as my long-winded answer. So please take your time. What does it take for someone to be able to put something into orbit? Like what is required? Who do I have to ask? Can he just, if I decided tomorrow that I
mean permissions wise?
Yeah,
right?
permissions wise. Yeah, how? Because it seems like he's always putting new satellites into orbit.
Yeah,
that's a lot of satellites in orbit. Is there someone who's like, no, bro, you've reached the maximum? Or can he just go to a different government and be like, can I launch from here instead? How does that work?
You can go to different governments for clearance. There are upsides and downsides of that. There's actually been a lot of talk over the last 20 years of some of the equatorial African nations on the east coast of Africa being in the perfect position to start building launch facilities and giving launch licenses, because it would get you away from government red tape in the U.S., which a lot of the private operators are very cranky about. And you're launching out over the oceans east of the African coast, which is perfect. And on the equator, which is the reason why we launch at Florida, you're giving this little additional shove because you've already got the maximum speed while you're leaving Earth. Traditionally, launch has been controlled by the FAA, which makes sense to get you out of the atmosphere without hitting any airplanes. And the FCC, which is kind of weird, has a hand in permission for orbits because of communications bandwidth and comm satellites. And there was just something that passed in the Senate recently. Oh boy, I'm glad I can't see the chat right now because people are probably saying, "Come on, you idiot!" Trying to reallocate some of this authority to the Department of Transportation, the OST, which is the part of it that does orbit, and another branch, which has escaped me at the moment. But, this very question steps into this kind of boiling cauldron of who the hell's going to control this stuff, because there's traffic control to worry about. As you know, there's a lot of stuff zinging around up there, and we're constantly moving the space station to keep it from smacking into things, and we don't want other uncontrolled things up there. So that's why they're so careful about it. And, Musk is talking about ultimately having 32,000 plus satellites up there. Yeah, I mean, they're constantly looking out for each other and other things now and maneuvering to get out of the way. Well, when you run out of maneuvering fuel or you lose contact or something stops working, you basically have a big missile up there waiting to run into something at high rates of speed.
Oh, my word.
And as I think I've mentioned on here before, the space shuttle lost a portion of a front pane of a window. They're multi-pane, so it wasn't dangerous, but they lost a substantial amount of glass out of the front window from running into a paint flake.
No.
The size of a dime. This happened a few times because everything's moving very fast and sometimes in different vectors. So the collective speed can be very destructive. So these permissions are pretty important,
That's horrifying.
And they're trying to, yeah. And up till now, the Air Force has been the primary organism tracking all this stuff, and they're trying to diversify that too. So there's a bunch of work going on in both traffic control and permitting. But the short answer to your elegantly short question is yes, you do have to get permission, and it takes a long time and costs a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. So that's again where he comes through with the cajoling and bullying and all of that to make it happen.
And my favorite was years back, I think it was 2012 or 13, he really wanted to be launching Air Force payloads. And they said, that's nice, kid. Come back to us when you got some. Maybe it was earlier than that. It might have been 2010 because he was still working on getting the Falcon 9 to be reliable. So, and at this point, United Launch Alliance, which is, the old standby guys, kind of had a death grip on everything and were just pillaging the taxpayers for money to basically sit there and be ready in case there had to be this national security payload. And SpaceX says we can do it for less than half. So when the Air Force didn't listen to them, he sued them.
Oh.
And made them listen. And then they said, yeah, okay, be good sports about it. They said, yeah, okay, you're right. And now he's a regular provider. So it's a very weird way to do business, but
seems to work for him.
If only we could do the same thing with podcasting. Look at where we'd be, yes. Right?
Who can I sue?
Yeah, right. Who can I sue and who do I lambast and Mau? I just haven't figured it out.
Oh, dear. Rod Pyle, anything else that you want to talk about before we say goodbye?
Well, there's a little more UFO news, which you always love to talk about.
Always
I know we're
good.
supposed to say AUPs now, but UFOs just more organic and fun. And still, they are still unknown, some of those. So Sean Kirkpatrick is the head of the Pentagon's AUP investigative office. And as you know, there's been various attempts at trying to set up more legitimized ways of looking at this stuff. NASA just finished their own study. And was recently quoted as saying he was disturbed about this substantial uptick in reporting of UFO/AUPs. Their impression is that most of these are benign. So they're probably, even at 30,000 feet, you can get a floating plastic trash bag up there, right? And of course, those damn Mylar balloons that every birthday and bridal shower have get loose, and if they have helium in them especially, they take off to the upper atmosphere and they reflect radar waves because they're metal coated. So there's all kinds of crap going around sending off false alarms, mostly with the Air Force. But there's also been maybe 4 or 5% of these that they're scratching their heads saying we really cannot figure out what they are. And part of what Kirkpatrick's concerned about is aviation hazards, things that can be ingested by jet engines or run into jets, either military or civilian. Now, a whole lot of these warnings come from carrier battle groups and Air Force bases like Nellis out in Nevada and so forth. But part of that's just because they're the ones that are always looking around, right? Because they don't want the bad guys to come in and bomb their bombers and so forth. But the upshot of this is the Pentagon, in about a month or two, is going to open their public submission portal. Could you imagine being in charge of that?
Word, that's
you think coast to coast is wonky, yeah. Oh. So they're going to be flooded with everything from intelligent semi-scientist reports to guys from Hickory Stick Joe, and But as he says, if you're taking reports from the broader public, who now have cell phones, and we're better equipped to do this than ever before, electronically, if not mentally, it would be very hard for a foreign actor to get away with much. So I thought that was interesting because we've been crowdsourcing science, we've been crowdsourcing funding, now we're crowdsourcing military surveillance, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I do. I think that's important too, because every time I watch a show that's, based in the past, and I think about, wow, this wouldn't even be a story in modern times because we've all got these devices that would have, the mystery would have been solved so quickly. And that is something that is nice that, hopefully they can figure out a way. Maybe they'll use AI to sort through the stuff that's just goofy and find the actual citizen reports that matter.
That's actually a good point, because AI, I just did a segment on Ancient Aliens with them or William Shatner's Unexplained about every 6 weeks. For years I didn't do it, but they've actually kind of upped their game in terms of science, so I said sure. And part of it was talking about the impact of AI on both UFO reports and also looking for life, or at least exoplanets, radio signals outside of beyond Earth. And AI is going to be huge for that, and already is huge for that, because it'll sort through these mountains of data that would drive people absolutely bats. They've been crowdsourcing that too, but there's only so much that human beings could do. So, the upshot of this is there's a lot of very smart people that think that by the end of the decade, we'll have found something from somebody.
Nice.
So, fingers crossed.
Yes.
I hope they're nice.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. Let's hope they're nice.
Yeah.
Like those two friends you have behind you.
Yes. Would you like to know the story? Do you have time?
Yeah, we've got time for a story.
So let me see if I get this right. Okay, over there, the spacesuit came from Hollywood Magic. Oh, look! Thank you, Apple. Came from Hollywood Magic back in the 1970s. It was $500. No, it was the 80s. I bought it for a History Channel show I was working on and never used it.
Oh,
the head also came from the same magic store in the 1970s. That mask over there. And that was, I think, back then $100, which was a lot.
Wow.
But look at it. It's still there.
It's very detailed,
This goofy guy is named Big Lou, the moon robot from Mark's Toys in the early 1960s. My father bought it for me for $9.95. He shoots water out of that hole in the middle of his chest.
No way.
There. He shoots darts out of the breast, which is a little disturbing. He's got a manipulator claw over there. And he used to have a crank in the back of his head that when you turned it, it actually tried to play a scratchy little 3-inch record that say, "My name is Big Lou. I am yours to command," and so forth.
That is so
But a great toy when you're a little kid.
Yeah, absolutely. How big is it? It looks quite large.
It's about 4 feet tall.
Wow. And how much was $9? And
today, that would be, all the other boomers on here are going to be going, get it right. I think about $40 or $50.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a lot at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a premium toy you got.
Maybe $30, something like that. Yeah, well, everybody got one good thing for Christmas.
Yep.
What's the best thing you ever got for Christmas?
A Kindle keyboard was the best thing I ever got for Christmas. Yeah.
Wait a minute, a Kindle keyboard?
Yeah, it had the keyboard on it. That was the model.
Yeah,
that was the model name. Because I grew up, we did not have a lot of money. And so I kind of said it jokingly as this thing that was, something I really, really wanted, but didn't expect. And so when I got the last gift and it was this little box and I opened it up and that was inside, I thought, how is this happening? This is so cool.
Did the tears come?
Oh, absolutely. The tears came. Yes. It was a miracle. It was awesome. It was awesome. I still have it. That
reminds me of the fact that I'm still angry that I can't use my Sidekick anymore.
Oh, I was just watching
because
with Sidekicks in it.
That rotary flip screen thing, not the one that flipped up, but the one that circled up.
It's so
that
cool.
little. It was as silly as it sounds. It was the sensuality of that thunk when it hit. It was so perfect about that device. It was one of the best pieces of designs I ever saw. And then they said, "Oh, we're not going to support it anymore."
That's so sad. Oh, it is so cool.
It really was.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing some great stories with us today. Of course, folks can check out This Week in Space at twit.tv/TWIS.
Here, let's see if I can do it again.
Yeah. Can you get the thumbs up going?
Oh, now it's not going to work.
Of course.
Of course.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Got some fireworks going.
Oh, good Lord.
Twit.tv/TWIS. Go subscribe to the show. And of course, you are the editor-in-chief of Ad Astra Magazine, which can be found at space.nss.org?
And at astramagazine.com, because we like to keep things complicated. Hey, have a great Thanksgiving.
Oh, you as well. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. And
Thank you.
Hey, people, go buy Rod's books, because I know you're trying to get another one in the works. I don't know if that's still going on, but hopefully.
It is actually. I called the gentleman who I'll be doing my first biography, complete biography anyway. And I said, look, I know I've got a couple of publishers ready to bite, but let's stop jerking around and just get the thing started. So we're going to start in about 2 weeks. And then once I finally get the contract signed, I'll make a big announcement that everybody will ignore, except you, because you're nice.
No, I'll be paying attention. Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Rod, so much for your time. And we'll see you again soon.
Take care. Have a good show. Bye.
All righty, folks. Up next, we've got more questions waiting to be answered. We will get to those in just a moment. All right, we are back from the break. This is Ask the Tech Guys. This week, just with Mikah Sargent. Leo Laporte is racing through the streets of Las Vegas and is doing other, I don't know, what's it called? What's it? Formula One things. That's it, Formula One. Drinking out of a shoe, probably.
Well, not exactly. They Lisa did post a photo of someone drinking Irish. It wasn't Leo.
Wasn't Leo. Okay.
Wasn't Leo. We know that.
We cannot confirm or deny whether Leo himself has had any drinks out of a shoe, but someone there was. All right, let's go to the calls.
I want to pick up on, I think it was Thomas, a phone caller.
All right, we've got a phone caller coming up. Again, you can call 888-724-2884 if you have a call. And when you get connected, be sure to hit *6 on your phone to unmute. And I think we're bringing them into the call now.
I don't know exactly is Thomas, but Thomas, go ahead and hit *6.
*6 to unmute.
There we go.
Hello.
Okay.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello, Micah.
Hi.
I am calling from L.A.
L.A., okay.
Windy L.A.
And your name is?
Tom.
Tom, okay. Hi, Tom from L.A. How can I help?
First of all, I'd love to say how great you are.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
It's wonderful to watch you. I want to know about how to maintain an old Mac, an old Mac Mini. I mean, it's not really old. I've got 3 Mac Minis sitting here on my desk, a 2012, a 2014, and a M1 Mac Mini.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to maintain one of the old ones with Catalina on it because I want to run, I've got some Windows software, 32-bit Windows software that I want to run in emulation. And I was running an emulation on the 2012 and, when what was that for Catalina, whatever. They cut out 32-bit. Wow, look at that one. That's like my 2006.
What year is this, John? 2009.
I think it's 2009.
Yeah, look at this one's. Look at how yellow it is. This one's gotten so yellow.
Yeah, well, those and I actually have a CD or DVD drive in them.
Yeah, check that out.
Depending on which one you got. Yeah. But I want to run Windows in emulation.
Okay. Yeah.
But I need a Windows in emulation that's old enough to run 32-bit. And as far as I know, there's nobody making a emulation package that'll run on any
older
Apple Silicon.
Oh, so for Apple Silicon, yeah, they're oh goodness, we just showed this. I actually did an episode of Hands on Mac where we had Paul Thurrott on, and he talked about running Windows apps on the Mac on Apple Silicon because it actually works quite well now, given Microsoft's sort of semi-commitment to ARM, to running Windows on ARM.
But that is not 32-bit.
Right. Okay, I see.
I think they support 32-bit.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go to the chat for this because I am not aware of 32-bit emulation for Mac to run Windows. That is a certainly complicated thing.
I understand it's weird, and the problem is if I plug it into the internet, then Apple wants to upgrade things, and then they don't. As soon as you lose Catalina, I think you've lost all of 32-bit support.
Right. Yes, because they stopped supporting as it got. Yep. You have really introduced a difficult issue here because Yeah, you have to be very careful about how you go about this, right? So right now, what are you doing? You just can't run these Windows apps that you're wanting to run? You just don't have a way to do it?
No, I have a 2012 Mac Mini that I was running it on. Everything was fine, and it still got Catalina on it, but it kind of blew up a year ago, and I just finally got. I found a 2014 at a pawn shop, and I bought that. And I've been struggling. I finally got Catalina running on it because I had it. When I open it up, it's got what looks like an NVMe M2 drive in it. It's a stick drive of some kind, and I started programming with COBOL, and my first computer was a CPM machine. So this is decades before you were born, and and I'm not as quick in keeping up with things as I used to.
So,
but I still want to run this old software,
right? Which is totally fair.
And and the problem is I don't want to. If I leave it plugged into the internet, both Apple and Microsoft want to update the software,
right?
And blow me out of the water again.
Yes, then you're going, well, now what do I do? I'm going to have to go to a pawn shop again and try to find one, or come sneak into Twit whenever we're not here and get ours from 2007 and 8 and whatever. Yeah. Once again, Scooter X has posted in the chat with a suggestion. Shout out to Scooter X. There is a person on YouTube who, in order to play a 32-bit Windows game on the Mac, used a tool through Wine, which is it's kind of a complicated thing, but it basically translates.
Oh, I know what Wine
Okay,
is.
you know what Wine is? Okay, great, perfect. Do you like red or white? No, I'm kidding. So with this thing called the Wineskin Winery, it works with macOS Catalina and will let you run 32-bit emulated that way. Now, I would recommend that you watch the YouTube video, that you, as much as you can, read through and understand the code. I would go, because it's a GitHub package, so you can read through and understand, what's been changed, read the discussion. Basically, I'm saying I can't just come out and recommend this because I've never used it before and I'm only just learning about it now. But this could be a potential solution for you to continue to run that on this machine. So what we will do, as we always do, is include a link to this YouTube video that links to a GitHub page in the show notes, which you can find at twit.tv/ATG. And in doing so, you'll be able to find this and learn about installing the package that basically lets you run Microsoft Windows software on macOS, including 32-bit on 64-bit installations. So this might be exactly what you need. In fact, it might be overpowered for what you need because it's specifically made for gaming. So to not have to even go as far as to do the gaming, that you're just wanting to run some software, I think is going to be potentially great for you.
Okay. I'd like to go to a completely different topic, which is connecting to Twit. I'm currently talking to you over my phone, watching you on my computer.
Okay.
Because, I refuse to hook up camera and audio and all that to the computer. I just don't want it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But when I go to try to I can't log in to the club. I can't, for some reason, I I've tried logging in with my my Discord password and my memberful password, and it tells me no. I can log into the club just fine on the computer.
Interesting.
And for some reason, the Twit app on the phone, at least when I get on the phone, doesn't have a button so you can see the password to make sure you got the right password typed in.
Mm-hmm.
I hate these people who won't put in a show me the password. I'm 80
I
years
see. Because
old.
it
I
only
live alone.
Yeah, it doesn't let you see what the password is.
And you're I'm trying to type with my fat fingers on a pixel screen.
Yes.
It's Pixel XL. It's a big screen, but it's easy to
accidentally
screw up what you're typing.
Absolutely. So there are a couple things here. First and foremost, what I would recommend for you in that particular situation, because I do this sometimes, and you can do this even outside of this issue. What I like to do is I have a text message thread that I have just with myself. Like I send it to my own number. And anytime I have a password that I want to make sure I'm typing in right, I will go into my text message thread with myself. And, in the part where you type in the message, I will type out my password. I won't send it to myself, but I'll just go ahead and type it out. I see that it's typed in correctly. Then I highlight that and I copy that text on my phone. And then I go to the page and I paste it instead of having to type it out there. That way I know that it's typed out correctly. But what I would like, because for the sake of keeping the show moving along, we'll have to go some more questions. But what I want for you to do is to email me directly. That's mikah@twit.tv. Tell me that you just talked to me on the show, and I'm going to help you get that figured out. Okay, so we'll figure out how to get you logged in and get all of that ironed out. But we don't want to do Discord troubleshooting on the show.
Know. Copy that. Okay. Well, thank you. Because my next question is along the same lines, and I'll copy that on the email to you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Continue your wonderful work. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
All that.
All right. Talk soon. And thank you for the call.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All righty. Let's go to another email.
Let's do that. You want email or voicemail?
Voicemail. We haven't done a voicemail yet. Yeah. So yes, if you want to,
hi Leo,
1 second,
Mikah,
the voicemail. Just so folks know, if you want to leave a voicemail, 888-724-2884 is the phone number that you call while we're off of the air to leave a voicemail. All right, go ahead.
Hi Leo and Mikah, this is Jeff calling from New York. Love the show. Really quick, I got a work iPhone and I have my personal iPhone, and unfortunately, I probably made a mistake of using the same Apple ID. When I take photos from one phone, they go on to the second phone, and they're work related, so I didn't really want them on my personal phone.
Yeah.
Is there a way at this point to stop it from happening, and the pictures I take for business just stay on that phone, and the personal stay on that phone, and they don't share with each other, or text messages as well, but more importantly, the photos. So I appreciate it. Love the show. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to hearing the answer. Thank you.
What a great question. So the first and easiest thing to do is to go in on your work phone and you launch settings, you go into Apple ID, and then you tap on iCloud, and then you turn off iCloud for the things that you don't want to sync. So you would turn it off for photos, you would turn it off for messages in cloud, and whatever else it happened to be. Maybe you don't want notes to sync between the two devices. That's if you want to keep the Apple IDs the same. If you don't want to go through the hassle of setting up a new Apple ID, that's the way that you would do it. So you simply turn off iCloud for those. It's going to give you a bunch of warnings, and you do need to understand then that only what's stored locally on the device is what's going to be there. It's not going to sync away. But that's the kind of simplest way to go about it. If you decide that you have the gumption, the wherewithal, the desire to do so, the best thing you can do is just go ahead and create a new iCloud account. So what you'll do is on the work phone again, log out of the phone with your Apple ID, erase the phone. There's like an erase all settings and restart kind of thing. And then when you go through the setup process, it will give you the ability to create a new account. I did that. I have a mikatwit@icloud.com account. I don't care if you email it, it's fine. I use it for Hands on Mac, especially to show all sorts of stuff with Apple ID things. Sorry, I had a brain blast, we'll say, but it will give you the ability to go in and set up the account wholly separately, and then you don't have to just turn off piecemeal. And what's great about that, the reason why I suggest going that route is because if you go that route, then you have your own pocket of iCloud storage, you have your backups, you have all of that stuff. And hey, maybe you can even go as far as to get work to pay for, or you can expense, if you need to increase the iCloud storage for the photos that you're using for work. Or if you work, if you are the one that runs your job and, tax time comes at the end of the year, then also, you're using that iCloud storage, you can use that at that point too. So in either case, those are your options. I would recommend going the way of creating a new iCloud account for that work email. Go ahead and back up the phone before you obviously erase everything. But then you would start fresh and you'd be able to use that work phone separately. But yes, the quicker, simpler way is to just go into your iCloud settings and turn those off for the stuff that you don't want to sync between the two. Great question. And thank you for calling in to Ask the Tech Guys. All right, email now. All righty. So this next email comes from Pat, who writes, "Hi, Leo and Mikah. Quick question. I have a whole Google Home house with mostly smart bulbs, plugs, and cameras connected to the Wi-Fi, all good. I would like to change my internet provider for a better price. The problem is that if I change providers, I have to use their router, and that means connecting up all my smart products one by one again. Any suggestions to make this process simpler? Big fan of the show from all the way over here on the west coast of Ireland. Thanks again for your help, Pat." Pat, I love this question. Okay. So we have some options here. The first thing that you can do is, if you commit to wanting to change providers, look at the current SSID, that is the name of your Wi-Fi, and password, and write that down somewhere. The one, if you haven't changed it since your ISP first set it up and you're using the one that they gave you, the same password and everything, write that down somewhere. And then once you have that username and that SSID, and that password. So SSID, it's just the name of your Wi-Fi. Mine, for example, is Ashmead. And then my password, which I'm not telling you. Then you have the information that you currently have typed in or logged into on all of your different home networks. When you get the new ISP, either instruct the person who's installing the internet, or if you have the wherewithal and you have the know-how to do it, you yourself go into the new router and you change the name of the router to that SSID. So I would change it to Ashmead, and then you change the password to the password that you had before. When you do that, good news, many a smart device is too dumb to know that that is not just the same router that you've always had. So they will connect to the new one and you won't have an issue. Now, I have run into this myself where there will be one or two that they get weird in some way. The password is Chihuahua123. Now I've got to change it. Thanks a lot. So they will, you may run into one or two, but you won't have to do the whole thing all over again, right? So plan for one or two to be the issue. But Pat, if I may, this is where I implore you. Save money in the long run, save hassle in the long run, and take more control of your destiny by getting your own router and, dare I say, getting your own modem if you can. Now, I don't know how it works in Ireland. It could be different there, and so I understand that may be the case. But if you are able to, one of the best choices I made a long time ago was going through the initial headache of getting my own modem and my own router and not using the stuff provided by the ISP, because oftentimes it doesn't get updated. It's older technology. It's been used by a bunch of other people. So it is sometimes not working at its best because it, there may be some power issue or some heating issues. It's been around a long time. There's so many different things that could be. You may not have as much control over it, and you could have more control if it was yours. You're saving money because you're not spending each month on renting the router and the modem. So I would suggest in the long run getting your own. And then if you do get your own, same thing. Give it the same name and the same password as the Wi-Fi that you had, and almost all of your devices are going to go ahead and automatically connect. Great question. Love that. And thanks for writing in, Pat, and for listening all the way from the west coast of Ireland. We appreciate you. All right, where should we go next?
Pick up another phone caller.
All righty, we've got another person on the line. Remember that when you join the call, you want to hit *6 to unmute yourself. *6 to unmute.
Hello?
Hello. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Micah.
Hi.
Robert Holowinski. I'm calling from Utah.
Hi, Robert from Utah. Thanks for calling.
Long-time listener. And I'm actually pretty surprised that you went to the same elementary school I did.
What?
Yeah. Camp Pendleton.
Holy moly. That's wild. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, how long ago did you go?
I graduated in 2000. So my sixth grade teacher was Mr. Jackson.
Wow.
So quite a ways back, but yeah.
Yeah, my kindergarten teacher's name was Mrs. Wheeler, and I remember that I can't remember the names of the other two teachers, but there were two other kindergarten teachers, and one of them did the science stuff, and the other one I think did math. And we went to the science teachers. I don't know if it's stayed the same, but at the time they were teaching in like individual trailers, and went to the science teachers. And I remember there were ants all throughout the room. And she said, if you see any ants, don't step on them because they're supposed to be here. They're just walking around. And oh man, that was an interest.
You were there basically when the school was older and
yes.
They didn't replace the school okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when I was there too. And then I went to Potter Junior High and then Fallbrook High School and graduated there.
Oh, right. Yeah. It was a good time from what I remember. It was, I really enjoyed my experience there, but, how can I help you today?
Yeah. So I'm a long-time listener. I started listening to Leo in 2008 when I got out of the Army, after 8 years of active duty as a tanker, on the Abrams, and I've listened to you guys ever since. And I'm a club member. Joined up today.
Oh, thank you so much.
And totally support. Yeah, I support all that you guys are doing. And I, as a disabled vet, I have a lot of time on my hands as a stay-at-home father, and I just enjoy listening to you guys all day.
Well, thank you.
My question is how do I listen live? Because as a club member, like, how do I listen live when I have no problem on my Amazon, but when I go to leave somewhere, I used to listen on the phone live, and I don't know how to listen to that audio live.
Yes.
Is there a way?
There is. So I know there's a URL. Maybe somebody knows. Is it AM something? Hold on just a sec. It's going to be whispered into my ear in just a moment. But I know that there's a URL that folks can go to. Let's see.
twit.am/listen.
twit.am/listen. And that is an audio broadcast that is going out. So you could visit that on your phone, and you don't have to have, anything open on the phone at the same time. It'll just play as it normally does through your phone. So if that ends up connecting to your car, then it'll play out of your car. So that's just an audio feed that's available to you. If you have a YouTube subscription, this is for folk, I don't know if this applies to you, but for anyone who's listening who has the same question, if you have a YouTube subscription, then you also have the ability to turn off video and keep the audio streaming in the background. And so you can also do that via our YouTube live stream. But yeah, I think the best option for you is to go to that URL, twit.am/listen.
Okay.
TWIT.
And that's a website?
Yeah, that, and actually it's not even a full-on website. It's literally whenever you go to twit.am/listen, if you do that from your phone or you do that from your browser, all you're going to see is a little stream thing that's just playing audio. It's quite literally a direct connection to our audio stream. So yeah, it won't have like, the Twit logo in the top or anything like that. It's as if you're just connecting directly to the audio. So that, folks who are watching, you can see how it is appearing in the browser. And oh yes, that's right. You can also download, thank you, John, the Broadcasts app. It's just called Broadcasts. And that is an app available for, I assume it's for Android as well, but definitely for iPhone. And you can
I'm an Apple user.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can download Broadcasts and then you just put that URL in, twit.am/listen, and then it will give you that connection. That is how John Slanina will listen at times. So yeah, he's given the thumbs up to confirm that works as well. But yeah, between either just going in the browser to that or getting the Broadcast app, which is going to give you a little bit more functionality, obviously, you'll always be able to hear. But yes, if you want to watch, then you'll need to use the YouTube live or our Discord live to be able to watch while you listen.
Okay. And last question, are you guys going to come out with like an Apple app for just members, Twit members, to log into?
It's a good question. It's a fair question. I would say not in the short term. Frankly, right now, it's harder than ever because we are having to make such cutbacks that, to go through the development process of that is difficult. What I'm hopeful for, and what I would love for everybody who is a listener to do, especially those of you who use Discord, tell Discord that they need to get an app for Apple TV. It's not just Club Twit. It's so many different places that are going, why can't I watch my Discord streams on Apple TV? Why can't I see it on my TV? If you reach out to Discord via email, or if you tweet at them, or wherever your social media happens to be, if Discord is there, say, can you please make an Apple TV app? Can you please make, smart TV apps? I know a lot of people want them, and there needs to be more pressure to get them to do that. If they will, then you'll be able to watch it there. But in the short term, you can always use, YouTube has apps in almost everything, and then you can just browse to our YouTube live stream from the YouTube app and watch it that way.
I agree. And also for all the other listeners, seriously, it's just $7 a month. Or $84 a year.
Woo!
To sign up. It's a good cause. So thank you guys. Thank you, Mikah.
Thank you
and
so much.
Thank you, Leo.
And thank you for your service.
All right. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Great questions. And let's take a break to hear from one of our sponsors. All right, we are back from the break. This is Ask the Tech Guys, this week with just yours truly, Mikah Sargent. Leo Laporte is in Las Vegas doing the Indy 500. No, that's not it. Racing F1 cars. Watching F1 cars race. And drinking out of shoes, maybe. Anyway, while he is gone, I am here to answer your tech questions. And can we do a voicemail? Cool. We're going to go to the voicemails.
Hi, Leo and Mikah. This is JP calling from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I've got a problem on iOS. I'm getting spam calls from foreign countries, Greece, Russia, and a few others, and I can't block them by default with all, like, block countrywide. I can block individual phone numbers, but of course, as spammers, they're using a different number every time. And I don't want to block all unknown callers. For example, I had got a call from my doctor's office today, and it was an unknown number, but I needed to take that call. So if you could help me out, that would be excellent. Thanks a lot, and keep up the good work. Bye.
JP, this is a fantastic question, and it's one that is ongoing for a lot of people. It is something that is frustrating and something that I have tried to handle in many different ways. And so I've used a lot of different services to try to make this not be as terrible as it is. What I would recommend is, unfortunately, you can't do it with just what Apple provides. Apple has the ability to do what's called silence unknown callers. And as you point out, that means that if your doctor calls you and they're not in your phone, then it will also silence their phone call. And that's frustrating. So what I recommend, there are two apps that you can check out. One is called RoboKiller, and the other app is called Hiya, Hiya. Now, Leo's not a big fan of RoboKiller because of the potential privacy implications. What RoboKiller does is you give it permission to forward your calls through its system before they are then forwarded to you. So what RoboKiller then knows about you is who is calling you. That's important to keep in mind. So be aware of the fact that if you use this service, they will know who you have, or who is calling you rather. But what the system does is it takes calls, and if the call is known as spam, it will keep it from coming through to you. With RoboKiller, you can also have it answer some of these phone calls, so it wastes the time of spam callers. It will do like the, hello? Sorry, I can't hear you. What are you saying? Hello? Or some other thing. They have like celebrities as well, so it can be, a celebrity taking the phone call in your place, all sorts of stuff. And the point there is that you kind of get to quote unquote fight back. But what it does is it will block the phone calls that are ones you don't want. And what I've done in the past with RoboKiller, only because of his paranoia, like I never had an issue with RoboKiller blocking calls that I actually needed to get through. But because I'm paranoid, what I would do is when I knew that my doctor, they say, oh, we're going to call you tomorrow to follow up about the appointment, right? I will pause. They have an option to pause RoboKiller, and you can pause it for 24 hours. So for that next 24 hours, you'll get some spam calls again, but then it'll turn back on afterward. But even still, I did not have issues when, I forgot to be paranoid. My phone calls were still getting through the ones that I wanted. The other option is Hiya. I've used Hiya as well. Reviews suggest that Hiya is a little faster. It does the same thing. And what Hiya also offers is a little bit more of the ability of what you were talking about. The ability to go in and say, I want phone numbers from this area to not get through to me. I want phone numbers with this area code to not be able to contact me. So for me, that was very helpful when I had phone numbers with my same area code and the first two digits were the same as mine trying to get through to me. I knew that those multiple calls were all coming from spammers who were trying to get in touch. So check out Hiya and RoboKiller, and those should be able to help you out. All right. I do believe it's time for our next, the revelation of the photo assignment we've had and our next photo assignment. Chris Marquardt joins us here in the Stargate. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Micah, good to see you.
Good to see you too. How's it going?
It's going very well over here in Germany, and we have an assignment to talk about. Woo! Yes, we do. Here it is. the shiny assignment.
Shiny.
That we pulled from the fishbowl last time. And we had, let me bring this up here on the screen. By the way, it's in the Tech Guy group, which now has, I believe, over 14,000 people.
Wowza. More than 14K people who are, hopefully many of them submitting photos.
Yeah, almost 8,000 photos in there. I mean, it's just a wild story. So anyway, we have a whole bunch of shiny pictures, and I have, as usual, chosen 3 of them, and we'll go through them. First one, Scott Snyder submitted a picture called Shiny Balls. Now, these are plastic balls, and they are a photo of his daughter's stress toy that fell apart.
Oh, no.
I like these kind of photos because just the sheer abstractness. You would have no idea what that is if you just looked at it. We're looking at yellow and blue and violet balls and green ones in between, and it's just like it's one of these you guess what that is.
It reminds me of those magic eye puzzles where you have to stare at them and then suddenly 3D shapes come out. I don't know if you've ever.
I see a dolphin. Yes,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a chicken launching a space rocket. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, I tried it. I just went cross-eyed. So, Scott, thank you so much for submitting that. And the second one I chose was by 20 March 1989, another shiny anthurium, which is a flower, and I didn't even know that's what it's called in English.
Anthurium, okay.
Anthurium, I know exactly what they feel like. They feel like wax, like the red part of it.
Yes, I know what that flower is. Yes. Oh,
so
wow.
what you see here is a close-up, and you also see an issue that that you very likely have when you do close-ups of red flowers and crank the color saturation. In the right front part, you see some flatness in the red. Do you notice that?
Yeah. Okay. I thought that was like texture.
Texture? No, there's texture missing because what happens with these very, very screen filling primary colors like red, green, and blue, they often tend to blow out that channel, to overexpose that color channel. So you end up with like, okay, there's no texture. And the simple way to fix that in taking the picture is just bring down the exposure just a little bit. Just make it a bit darker when you take the picture, and that will usually take care of that. A beautiful picture nevertheless, but that's a little technical tip here. So, last but not least.
Wow.
Gary Neville's Mackinac Island is the title of this photo. And the reason I chose this is, well, first of all, what we're seeing is the sea with the sun coming from the back. So you have a lot of tiny little specks of bright light. And if you look closely at them, let me zoom in. Do you see what I see? All these little tiny stars.
Goodness. That sparkle. How do you do that?
There's the secret is that this is hard to do with a smartphone, unfortunately. You need a bigger camera, a mirrorless camera, or a DSLR. And you need a lens that can have a very small aperture. So the hole that the light comes in through. When you make this really tiny, then point light sources will turn into little stars. And you can use this for Christmas lights, for example. Christmas coming up. So if you have one of these cameras, try to stop down the lens to like something like f16, f22, a really tiny aperture. And you can only use some software to fake that on a smartphone because you will really need this physical aperture to make this work. So
that is really pretty.
3 amazing pictures, pretty pictures. Thanks everyone for participating in this. And
it's time.
I guess it's time
for the next assignment from the fishbowl.
Pull that from the fishbowl. Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Unusual.
Unusual is the word. Oh, that is fun. That's got so many different options, right?
Yeah, definitely. So the way to do this is you go to the Tech Guy group on Flickr. Flickr is a free website. You can just sign up and submit photos, and you submit that photo to the Tech Guy group. Again, the name of the thing I chose is unusual. So the tag you have to add to make sure you are a part of this whole thing is TG unusual. That's how we find you. And then in about a month from now, we'll have a log.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Choose another 3. Unusual.
I have a feeling there are going to be a few goats in the mix for this one. At least I find goats unusual. Maybe I'll go take some pictures of goats because I think they're very unusual creatures. Oh,
I think we all have unusual stuff, or we find unusual stuff. It's just a matter of going with that internal impulse that tells you, oh, that's unusual. I better take a picture for this assignment.
Absolutely. So do your assignments, kids, and join if you have not. That's at flickr.com/groups/techguy. You'll know you're in the right place because you'll see Leo's photo, but you'll also see a little over 14,000 members. So be sure to join. Of course, folks can head to discoverthetopfloor.com to check out your work. Chris, is there anything you want to promote before we say goodbye?
Now, I'm just in the process of adding some more driving tours, more photo road trips for next year. So they should be coming up in a few months.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And get out there and take your unusual photos for the assignment. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. I think we've got time for maybe one more.
Pick up on one more phone call.
All right. We're going to the phones. When you get the notification that you've been brought on air, or however that works, hit *6 to unmute yourself, and then we'll be able to take your call. Welcome. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hey, Micah, this is Kenny from Cottontown, Tennessee. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Kenny. Thank you for calling.
Hey, I wanted to kind of see if maybe I could help you out because you had a guy that called in about the 2009 Mac Mini.
Yes.
And ironically, I was going to call about parallels, and I don't know if that would be an option for him if he wants to run, like, let's say, Windows 7 or Windows 32. I believe that's still available even on the Apple Silicon. You may need to have some help with Scooter X and the Discord chat on that, but I'm pretty sure you could still run Windows 7 even on an Apple Silicon, and he might be able to run 32-bit programming on there.
Yeah, I guess I am seeing here. There was a blog post back in October of 2019 that was updated in September of 2020. And it says, Apple says Mac users will not have support for 32-bit applications or programs on macOS Catalina. That is incorrect. Mac users will be able to continue to run 32-bit applications or programs, even if they're using Catalina, with the help of Parallels Desktop for Mac. So it is possible that through the use of Parallels, that our listener would be able to run 32-bit Windows applications. So yeah, that's fantastic. Parallels is in theory still able to run that. Now, the great thing about Parallels is there is the ability to try it out. So our listener would be able to give that a go and see if it works, or if Parallels has updated since then to stop offering that support. So, Kenny, that's great advice.
Yeah, and I actually do use Parallels a lot, especially when it comes to Windows, because it works very well with Windows on ARM. But I've also been dabbing with it on Linux, and there was a recent software update where I was trying to get it to use the x86/64 emulation on the Ubuntu side of things, Ubuntu Linux. Unfortunately, some of the programs just will not work, even though it has Rosetta built into it, which helps emulate some of the x86/64 architecture. But the question I wanted to have, and this may be not something that you might be able to help out with, or maybe someone in Discord can, is there anything else that I need to add onto, let's say, the Ubuntu Linux emulation on Parallels to have all the x86/64 Docker applications or programs to work? Because I've tried some of them. I was able to go. I mainly use Linux for Python and programming, but R and R Studio I could not be able to get on 866/64 emulation. I just was wondering if anybody on Discord knows of any other options besides Rosetta that might help solve that problem.
Yeah, this is definitely this is a phone a friend question. My friend is watching Formula One cars racing right now. But you've now put out the call to the Discord for your Linux question, and in theory, someone might have an answer for you on that. It is part of the job of a tech guy to not pretend to know the answer and to admit when he doesn't, and so that's what I'm doing for you here. I simply do not have an answer for you on that, but. If somebody listening does, then you can check that out in the Discord. I'm not seeing anybody saying anything at the moment. So.
All right. Well, I'll give you an easy question to wrap it up. This one kind of involves, DVR, but in a local sense. One of my first experiences with tech growing up when I was 4 years old was learning how to program and run a VCR. And that kind of helped me get going on a tech perspective. And I know that we've had TiVo in the past. Mm-hmm. And normally with streaming services now, we have DVR, cloud DVR. But my question is there a DVR that does like local, not internet, not streaming, but like a local, like let's say a VCR or a TiVo, or if you wanted to, I hate to use the word capture, but it's true, capture anything. Like let's say you wanted to capture a YouTube video without a lot of heavy equipment. I know that there are some cables out there and even some cards that you got to put into some of them. But I was just wondering if you have heard of anything of like, say, a VCR equivalent to where you can just plug in, record, and capture, and that's it.
Yeah, I think there are quite a few options for that. There's a company called Tableau that makes a device that will let you capture up to 4 channels at a time. These are, OTA channels, so you can, use whatever it happens to be. And will also, what's cool about it is that while it's a DVR, it can also work as a set-top box in the same sense. So that also limits, you're talking about not having too much technology at once. Since it gets to be kind of everything, it will also do that as well. Let's see, Scooter X in the chat recommends points out something called, exactly, HD Home Run, which is at silicondust.com.
I've heard of both of them, Tableau and HD Home Run. They're very good. Yeah,
HD Home Run's the big one. So, sorry, are you wanting something other than that, or are you just wanting the sort of best recommendation?
No, that's it, the best recommendation, because I know I've heard of HD Home Run. I just was wondering if that was the only two, but since they are the only two, I'll definitely look for them in the future if I ever want to, do the VCR route when it comes to, let's say, YouTube, or even, I dare say, it's with Live maybe one day. If I need to get some tech help, it'd be good to be able to have that on there. But anyway, that's why I really wanted to call.
Those are great questions. They're pointing out, you mentioned something about capturing YouTube. Are you talking about YouTube TV, or are you talking about YouTube as in like the YouTube website and live stream?
Both, really. I mean, if it's possible. And I know that when it comes to like streaming, there's always the copyright issue per se, whether it's Prime Video or something, that they may try to block the image and so forth. Like if they could maybe detect that or something. But I just didn't know if there was a way of doing it locally. Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to that, it's essentially just a matter of so if you're talking about capturing something from, say, a computer, that can be as simple as plugging it into some sort of HDMI capture device and then having whatever is displayed on your screen and playing through your screen captured that way. There's also a website John Slanina has recommended, Hoppage. It's HAUPPAUGE.com, Hoppage. And Hoppage has several different TV tuners, but also a device that works with things like YouTube Live and Twitch. So you can check out that as well.
That's a good. I've seen that before. That's got some really good stuff there. I'm looking at it right now. I'll definitely keep that in mind as well. Just like I said, I'm just looking for options, and I figured I'd at least try to give you an easy question on the way out, and looks like I have. And I am still a Club Twit member, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, hopefully we can encourage Discord to get an Apple TV app, because that would really help us along the way. And thanks for the call.
Thank you so much for calling in. And yes, we'll keep our fingers crossed that Discord gets around to bringing an Apple TV app. Folks, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode of Ask the Tech Guy. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I will be back next week for another episode. Now's the time where I say, if you have questions, wait, Hophog? Really? How's it spelled or pronounced? Hopog.
Just say it 3 times fast.
Hopog.
Close enough.
Yeah, that's somebody out there. You heard me say it, so you don't have to send emails to me. So anyway, now's the time where I tell you how you can get in touch with us. You can head to call.twit.tv on what's happening now? Something's happening. All right. They're laughing. Okay. So, you can get in touch with us to join the show, have your questions answered by going to call.twit.tv. That's the URL to join the Zoom call. You can also dial the phone number 888-724-2884. During the week, if you call that number, you can leave a voicemail. But if you call while we're doing the show live, then of course you are able to join the Zoom and be brought on to ask your question. At any time, you can email us, atg@twit.tv. We've got some great emails here that I'm looking forward to getting to. Folks, you should also consider joining the club. There's been a lot of talk about the club today, which is great. We've got some very happy Club Twit members who joined the show. And so what you need to do is head to twit.tv/clubtwit. When you do that, you can join the club starting at $7 a month, $84 a year, and get a lot of great stuff. First, every single Twit show with no ads. It's just the content. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, special Club Twit events, and you can access the Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and also those of us here at Twit. Along with all of that, again, $7 a month, $84 a year, you can watch all of our Club Twit exclusive shows. There's the Untitled Linux Show, which is, as you might imagine, a show all about Linux. So maybe if you have a question about Linux that is as in depth as that one was, then you can head to the Untitled Linux Show to have that answered. You can also watch Hands on Windows, which is Paul Thurrott's short format show that covers Windows tips and tricks. Hands on Mac, which is my show that covers Apple tips and tricks, and the not the Untitled, we've already done that one. Home Theater Geeks is what it's called, from Scott Wilkinson. It is a show all about home theater. There are interviews, Q&As, product reviews, troubleshooting, and everything in between. It's a fantastic show with lots of information. And there's also Jason Howell's AI Inside, which is a show that covers AI. As, again, you might imagine, it's context clues. They're all there. Again, that starts at $7 a month, not because it's a tiered subscription, but because we heard from some people who said, hey, I'd like to give more than $7. So you have that option. It doesn't get you any more or any less, other than maybe makes your heart grow 2 sizes. Not actually, sort of metaphorically. And so you just feel good inside knowing that you've done that. That's at twit.tv/clubtwit. If you'd like to check out the other shows I do, you can watch on Tuesdays iOS Today, which I co-host with Rosemary Orchard. It's a show all about iOS and tvOS, watchOS, and basically every OS but Mac OS. It's the mobile operating systems, right? And you can check out Tech News Weekly, which is a show I host on Thursdays with Jason Howell, where we cover, we talk to loads of different journalists and other people who are breaking the tech news and get their takes. Again, I will be back next Sunday for another episode of Ask the Tech Guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a great Geek Week. Goodbye.
Hey there, Scott Wilkinson here. In case you hadn't heard, Home Theater Geeks is back. Each week, I bring you the latest audio-video news, tips and tricks to get the most out of your AV system, product reviews, and more. You can enjoy Home Theater Geeks only if you're a member of Club Twit, which costs $7 a month, or you can subscribe to Home Theater Geeks by itself for only $2.99 a month. I hope you'll join me for a weekly dose of home theater geekitude.